Okay, as I appear a little disheveled, but so it be, I'm still willing and able and capable of taking care of myself. As I do this video, I was a little rushed this morning to go and get some things done, and I'm thankful too. And I sit here before you, and I'm like, there was a friend I was in the car with, and there was something that came forward, and it wasn't a clear knowing of mine, but it was just kind of like every time she would say the word shit, I'd be like, well, why don't you just say sunshine? Used to be her high school nickname. And then she sends me something. Your new plant. My son says you need to name it Pebbles. That used to be a nickname of mine. So there's some beautiful magic that's occurring around all of us in a different way. It's not like we're invoking the magic. We're not invoking sorcery or voodoo or any of that stuff. We're just human beings living life experience, and things come up and we see the synchronicity, and the beauty of it is knowing we're on track and just to keep persevering and going. And perseverance can be looked at as a good or a bad thing. I look at it as like onward and upward, as I was told by an old neighbor, Sir Carter. He used to always say that, onward and upward. And so being at the monastery and the energy that you feel, amongst other things, I have a class to attend to soon. And so either way, today I'm like, I had to go Uber, get dropped off and then picked up. And the first Uber ride I got, the man and I really connected. We were talking and it was beautiful and we were exchanging. And I felt like I was doing a coaching session in a unique way, motivating, inspiring. And if you happen to see people that are prejudiced, always remember, like, we've all lived different life experiences, and it's programming and how, perception and perspective and our experiences and what is truth, what is not truth, and so on and so forth. And not even that the truth matters. In the case, we may see exactly the same thing, but the truth is perception of each person and how they perceive it because of their experiences, because of everything they've been programmed and taught. And so we had this magnificent conversation. And I told him, I said, yeah, I've had visions, like past life things, where I've seen myself as a man in brown. And I didn't go into the extensive details of, as a monk in that life and different things of the sort. And I just said to him how I had these desires where I was wanting to see more of that life, but it got shut down in a certain way. And so I'm like, okay, I'm okay with that. And the soulful remembrance of what is. And so who knows how that really unfolds. But either way, no expectation, no codependency, however it may be. The service was excellent. And so then I get an Uber to pick me up, to take me. And meanwhile, I take my dog for a walk. I get all this, do different things, to say the least, than what I've expected today. So it's like, oh boy, I got things to do still on my checkoff list sort of thing. And so here I am, I'm like, and I'm sure many can relate to this. So here I am, I get an Uber that comes again, and great service still. There's communication barrier, but it's still great service. And I just sit in the stillness in the moment of what is in silence, and I'm totally okay with it because I realize I don't have my phone. And I'm like, okay, I have to write down the way that he's taking me to this location so I know my way back. And so it is, and this is what I do, and I have a clear knowing of it. And it's way easier than I thought. But either way, I felt free because I'm like, I don't have my phone. And I knew exactly where it was, in the bathroom, on the stand. Or like in my bathroom. But either way, not on the stand, pardon me. It was in the bathroom. And then all of a sudden, my seminal is like, am I consciously unconscious? Like, what's going on? I came in the house, and I remember just holding my, like, something of a crystal to my heart. And I had a pouch that was in, and I took it out, a pocket. I took it out. And so I know subconsciously, it's kind of funny because I took it out this way, and then obviously I transmitted it to the other hand to place it down. Or I could have just placed it down with that hand. But for some reason, in that transition of transferring and placing it down, now that I think back consciously, nope, it was, I took it out and I placed it down. And then as I placed it down in my bathroom, I was subliminally, it was like a clear knowing. I looked down, and in my pocket is my phone. I felt like a rerun of Click, you know, the movie? And it's like as if somebody paused something and then they placed in a way of trickery and put it in my pocket. And then I was consciously back on again. And I mean, like, I am connected soulfully to my soul. I know this to be true. I feel it. I sense it. I know it. I've even said I don't have a higher self. In a way, it's a soulful connection to my soul. And so there is this thing where I look down and I'm like, and it's sticking out of my pocket. So first of all, I wouldn't put my phone going somewhere, and maybe I would. I can't say for sure. But looking at it the way it was, if I would have looked down at any point while I was in the Uber, I would have known. I would have felt. I felt like as if, you know, like, because even before that, before I left, I remember feeling in my pocket what I had. So I knew I didn't have my phone with me. At least I was consciously aware I didn't have my phone with me, because it's just strange how things can occur like that. And it brings me back to a time where you wonder consciously, unconsciously how things happen. I'll give you an example. And this I know is teleporting. This 100% happened to me, or for me, however you want to look at it. I had taken a girl who was the name of Venus. I don't know if that was her real name, but either way, I saw her in a store. She had tons of bags, and I said, would you like a ride home? Just out of the ordinary, out of the blue. And she said, I would love it. Never met her before, but I was just feeling safe to do so. I drove her home. She got out of the car. She went in the house. Her front room was full of plants, so no surprise. I'm like, oh, that makes sense why she would be called Venus. I didn't realize at the time maybe there's more than what meets the eye. So I'm in my car and I looked over and I'm like, okay, I see this little ring. It's like a little tiny ring, really small, for a pendant. And I remember that day, that's what I was going to that store for, and I never got it. But it showed up on my seat. And I'm like, oh, do I run after her to go? And I got a clear, like, nope, that's yours. So I take it, I'm all excited. I put it in my pocket, in my jacket. I get home. At the time, this is when I was still married over 5 years ago. So this would have been either 2018, 2019. And maybe it was in the, was it a fall of 2019? Or maybe even before. Either way, I have it somewhere recorded. And so I take my jacket off. I put it in the closet. I do not take that pendant, that little ring with me anywhere. Like, it's still in my pocket. I'm unconsciously aware. I'm happy. I'm excited. I get home. It's in my pocket. And I just leave it be. Because that's how I am, a moment-to-moment kind of individual. Later the next day, I get up. I'm like, oh, I have to get that little pendant out of my pocket in the closet. I'm excited. And then before I know it, as I'm having that subliminal thought, it's like going through a threshold. And as I'm going to the bathroom, having that subliminal thought, before I cross the door, through the door, it falls. It's like ping, ping, ping in front of my feet. Like the little ring. It's 3 or 4 times I heard it ping. And I'm like, that's odd. How did it show up from my jacket in front of me, pinging in front of my feet? I was excited. I picked it up and I was like, yeah, I can wear that pendant. Well, wouldn't you know, lo and behold, the pendant I had it for was a tree of life. And it was a beautiful pendant. And I'm being reminded now, it was a beautiful pendant. And that pendant, I lost. It was a little bit different than the one I saw today. But I lost it in a movie theater on the floor, and I remember going back to find it, and it was gone. It was gone. And so with the movie I saw last night and all this transpiring and the remembrance of things that are lifting and knowing that I'm a human being with a human being experience. I'm not being hijacked. I'm not being possessed. I'm not being, I'm a highly sensitive being, to say the least. And so it's like I'm not there to manifest those experiences that they had in the movie. That's somebody else. They're written about somebody else and somebody else's experience, a combination possibly of those and what's going on. And it's all kind of mumbled to jumbo to create something magnificent. And at the same time, there's truth in the science fiction show of what really goes on for people in some of their daily living. And so as I go off, I usually don't go off. So that's funny to recognize that consciously. And so at the same time, when it comes to being grounded and focused in certain things that are going on, and it's like being in my living room and just hearing my dog bark. First I see somebody coming up to my door. And so I'm visualizing, like seeing her disposition and stuff. And that's just an automatic thing I do. And I'm like, okay, I can answer the door. And my dog's barking and the barking is echoing off my gong and all this stuff is going on. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm still going to answer it. And I said, if you don't mind, I'll come out and talk with you rather than like in my house because of the dog. And so things quieted down and I got to talk to her about something that's really concerning. And that one of the things she said is our medical system is really messed up. And so I had the opportunity for the MLA in my neighborhood to express some things to her, to pass along to her. And some of the stuff that mattered is the fact that, you know, I guess there are those that go through an education, they become a doctor, and the entitlement of all the years and the cost and everything else that occurs for them. And then they say there's a shortage for doctors. I believe that there's doctors spread all over the place. And some places have more doctors than other places do, depending on what specialty they get into. Even knowing that you can go to a place and somebody can have a window and they can have all these doctors listed, but they're not actually working there anymore. Or they could have a list of doctors somewhere else on a business card and they're not all there anymore, but they still have it out. And so, but the main concern is that when doctors come to certain, like in Canada, provinces, they have what they call like sign-up bonuses and they have contracts. And so the government funds a certain amount of money so that they kind of I don't want to use the word entice, but that's what I'm getting. They want to promote doctors to come in a certain place. So I was like, well, how do we get them to stay longer so they can put some roots in the ground so that maybe they have kids and their kids have kids and now they're living in the province. It's like, I didn't expect to be living where I am, but you find friends and you do different things and you're not so transient. It's not all about the money anymore. It's about the experience. It's about the people that you meet and loving and enjoying where you're kind of situated. It's like you make the best of your situation. I'll give you an example. Serving in the military, you're away from family. I know what that's like. So you make the best of your situation. So you come together with other like-minded people. So in the military, when there was certain times at Christmas or whatever and holidays, we'd go home, but sometimes we couldn't. We'd get together with other military people, and we would just, and civilians as well. And so we just get together and create a different kind of family. And so some people live in transient ways where they're like away from their family. They live, in another province. They're going to go where the demand is. So how do we, as a province I live in, there is such a demand for doctors. You know that when people are waiting over 3.5 years for surgery, or never mind, the person's not so consistent in how long they've been waiting, but either way, you wonder, like some of these situations where people are waiting a very long time. And so it kind of brings you back to that 3D world mentality, and you're just kind of like, okay, how can we create change? And so we just pray and we hope that those that are destined to be here are, and those that are not. Pain and suffering is a real thing. And, there's people that can afford to go away and move to certain places and be financially, and some cannot. Some are situated where they are. Some would say it's karma. Some say it's merit, and some say not. It's all your experience, your choice. And I know that for me, I'm finding some beautiful divine relationships, but at the same time, I watch this monk and he says, like, one day somebody can be your friend and the next they're not. So not to be attached to it, which really kind of breaks my heart, because you hear another monastery monk talk about relationships and how it's important to be the example. So if somebody's not doing well, be the example, so that when you are the example, that'll shift and change and create change for them as well. Not to bear judgment, but let's just say somebody's being cruel and mean and disrespectful and judgmental. So you start to query, like, where and what are we to do when we're in these situations where there are those that are not of love and kindness, and to be the best you can be and be loving and supportive of your family. But then also you talk with others and you're going, okay, I'm transitioning, I'm changing. I have my TV in the basement. I don't even watch TV. I do different things. I get outside, I connect with people, I stay connected, and I do different things. And so it's like living in a different dimension, a different world, a different practice. Even like when you go to the store, you're like, yeah, I grabbed what I wanted for now. I just want to leave. I don't want to stay here. And then later you find out, oh, if you would have just wandered, a little bit more, maybe you would have found the Perrier water that you were looking for that was flavored. And so, there's just different things, to say the least, that we're all transitioning. And it's like some doors of opportunity open, and then fear comes up, because you know that there's a possibility that you've experienced helping someone else. And that's the thing when I work mobile crisis and all the stories, all the situations. And even now with all the stories and all the situations and people, and how I know somebody who was awakened to the awakening, invited somebody to stay in their home and trusted that person. They went on holidays, they came back, and everything was changed. The dishes in the cupboards, like the person's game playing, there was trickery, there's, the person that's living with her wasn't herself. And so you kind of get scared and you think, oh, wow, I'd love to open my home and be supportive, but I need to really get to know someone even before making that choice. And even then, your sovereign space, your sovereign being, it's, it can be scary. And so it's like going somewhere and being amongst other people and knowing that some of these teachers that once were are being invasive and affecting you. And you're like, nope, I'm not going there. No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm not allowing them in my home. I'm not allowing them in my environment. I'm not even going to engage by any way, by all means possible, and praying that that continues to be so. It's almost like party feels like being on the down low, and but at the same time, we still have to stay divinely connected. And some people say it's like going way back to that other movie, and it's so weird how Hollywood is, and I'm so careful of it. But Jimmy Carrey, I think is his name. He did that one, and I never did see it, or maybe I did, and I wasn't registering at the time. And it was about he was in a house and he felt watched, and how he was able to beat the system in a way of how to escape being watched every day. Now, this is so odd, but me, I just block it out. I'm just like, I'm coming in my house, I'm leaving. Somebody broke my sign. I know I can look at my camera and see and go through it, which I still can do. I heard a voice on the recording of my camera, a whole conversation. So obviously the bandwidth and picking up conversation in my camera as I was listening to the audio on the phone. And so I guess maybe Spirit was showing me the difference between divine light, that's like spirit as in not human form, like angelical slash divine beings in a different way. I'm not talking about extraterrestrial. I'm talking about like those of guys that are there for us. And then, you know, I've been through that whole thing way back years ago, and I'm like, you know what? It's done, done, done. I'm moved forward and knowing what I know and being as it may, and just continue on, and being of light and consciously aware as best as I can, everything that I'm doing, because we know that we can get distracted. And so really listening when need to be, speaking as I may with ease and grace as best as possible. Even today, I was in the store, and like I said, I was ready to leave, and I just, sometimes you see it, and I've seen it before, where you see kids, like a guy getting out of a truck, and he's parked, you know, in front of the store, and not parked in the parking lot like the rest of the people, and gets out, and his kid gets out too, and walking in with this powerful rush of energy, and his son behind him grabbing something as he's walking by, and then just holding it, and then chucking it in something. And then the kid has a clear knowing he's being watched, which is me behind them. And he turns around, and I'm just like bewildered, and I'm just watching. And so I find myself going down a different aisle, and then, oh, wait a second, I have to go down a different aisle. And then I'm down there, and the kid looks back at me like, oh, busted. Like she's the one that's seen me misbehave. And I'm like, I'm not to bear judgment. I'm just a seer. I'm watching what it is and how it may. I don't need to track the ancestral line and the energy of that in the store, to say the least. And so even before going to the store, I had this conversation. I'm like, why do earthbound spirits, those that just pass, have to linger around in visitation and doing what they're doing? Because they can cause havoc and harm and dismay and really affect other people's ascension. And for what? They don't even know until they cross over the truth of their life review amongst other things, and not to be trapped in the crossover place, so you're not causing pain and suffering amongst other people and human beings, like the pain and suffering you may have gone through, and not to rob them of their experience by any means, but to cross over, because the disruption that you can cause and the pain and suffering. And it's almost like they're so curious that when you are not you, you're not yourself, and you have a thought form that's not yours, and then you're going like, and some people would say it's possession and spirit, and you are not you, you're not yourself, and you may react differently. It could be good, it could be bad, dependent on that consciousness, that spirit, that that has, you know, a history of experiences where you can feel, in a way, the personality of that being. And I've been taught that way as well. And so it's knowing that you hear sometimes certain things, and you know it's more like human beings that are trying to hijack, possess, trying to do what ghosts so-called do. And these human beings, it can be either they're trapped, whatever the case may be, in different circumstances. Maybe they're trapped in their body. Maybe they're in a coma. Maybe they've been diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's, whomever it may be. Maybe they're just trapped in their body full of pain bodies. The mind can do magnificent things. At the same time, we're always tested, and you use discernment. If you know something doesn't feel right, it's like right now I'm getting like almost psychic attack daggers to my heart. I have a pure light heart, and so that's not going to control me and tell me what I can or cannot share right now with you through this video. And so that of light conquers dark always, always. That's part of human conditioning and evolving as we are as human beings. Don't get me wrong, some personalities, some people, they're just different. I'm not to bear judgment. It's part of the process. We're all programmed in one way or another. The way we're brought up, and even then, who we associate with, who we're around, whether it's in school, whether it's at home with our family, whatever the case may be, we're all programmed and conditioned in different ways, depending on our culture, our values, our views. You put game systems that are violent in front of a child, they're going to act violent. If you are out in nature and you're having fun and you're enjoying and you're of love and kindness, your kids are going to be of love and kindness. But if you're there and you're really young and you're taking the lives of others and doing stuff, I mean, how shocking would that be for a child to bear witness to? There's a reason why a hunting license, you have to be 13 years and older. And even then, if I had it my way, it'd be 18 and above. And even then, maybe 21, because when you think about the brain and how it's developed and processing, because you'll see a lot of young people that have went through trauma, and even into their 30s, they still haven't resolved the trauma that they've experienced. And they're not of sound in mind, or different things happen. That goes for many, many, many people. And then you get these people that are on a bandwagon of what they believe through AI or believe on video. So please use discernment, even with anything I share. If you don't agree, just know that's okay. And the reason why you don't agree is because you've been programmed a different way with all of your experiences. And some people go, programming, what's programming? Well, that's your remembrance. That is, you've been conditioned. You've been programmed. It was like when I was in the military at the time. I had the thought form that with all my training if there was chaos, crisis, certain situations, civilians wouldn't know what to do. I was programmed to believe that. And that's not necessarily true. So when I got out of the military, I had to be deprogrammed. In other words, learn new ways of perspective and seeing things so that I could see, like, the blinders could be taken off. And that goes for any profession, by the way. It doesn't matter what it is. And so it's kind of like taking the blinders off and going, oh, okay, I can see that so differently now. And then working in mental health and the other little things I did in between. And widening the perspective, it's part of creation. It's part of your foundation. It's a part of the whole tree that you are, like, or however you want to refer to it as. And so you learn different things from different people, but in reality, what comes true to down deep within your essence of who you are is your experiences, your creation, and who you are. So in other words, you may be a spiritualist and you see all these people and you see how they're creating and they're doing all this magnificent different stuff. You don't have to be them. You do not have to follow their way of life, their way of living. You can, of course, be a love and kindness and your intentions be pure, but you do not have to do what they're doing. You can do things your own way, and this is okay. It's not like you're being a rebellion or you're not a law-abiding citizen. It's not that. I'm talking about genuinely seeing things and using discernment. So if you, for example, see that somebody is doing something very different than you, just know you are the creator of your own magnificence. So if you say something to someone, be guaranteed it's almost like it manifests for you as well. So be of love, be of kindness, just know, and not having expectations or codependency on anyone. Certain things just unfold, unmask, and just know you're on this journey. And, you may not get synchronicities to know that you're on the right path. You just may have it clearly in your heart and just have a clear knowing of that. And that's okay too, whatever you believe. If you can live with yourself consciously and you love yourself unconditionally and you accept yourself and you start to realize that it's human conditioning to have self-doubt, it's human conditioning to have maybe possibly low self-esteem, all these things help you thrive to be a better human being. And to accept yourself for exactly who you are. And if you want to create change, it's you that has to create change within yourself. Nobody else can create that change for you. It's like helping someone out. And then somebody saying, oh, they're going to really be so appreciative for you helping them that way. And I'm like, well, in reality, I'm helping them. But truly, it's them helping themselves. They're the ones that become the successor in the success and making the choice, whatever is for the highest and greatest good, whatever feels right for them, whatever they persevere at, whatever or however they see it as, how they manifest and it unfolds for the highest and greatest good. And that goes for everyone. So if we're thinking evil and we're like having the mentality of, I want to take that person down because that's unacceptable, the behaviors and how they're doing. Well, you're putting yourself in the rabbit hole. You're putting yourself in situations where you're putting yourself in a battle, going at war. And how does that pay off in the long run? So some things you find you're selfless and those that are selfish. Now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that you don't stand, you're strong in what you believe in and being a catalyst for change in different ways. You will know. You'll feel it in your heart. Trust me, I've been distracted at times, certain things. And I'm like, okay, this is perfect timing. This is divine timing. This is when I'm supposed to do this. And it's just going to be as it may, exactly as it is, and not to fuss about it and just accept it. It's like today, like the gift, and like, oh wow, I get what? My car can be repaired by the end of this month. Like they're gonna work on how beautiful. Oh, thank you. Like I was expecting, sometime later next month or whatever the case may be. And I'm like full of gratitude. And so, because my car means a lot to me and treating it right. People can share things of their experience with you. It's their experience. It doesn't have to be your experience. You can agree to disagree and go, wow, my experience has been really great. And we're not going to manifest your experience into my experience for me to have to experience part of me. May that experience of that other person not manifest into my experience so that I may have more compassion. I have compassion. At the same time, oh Lord, love a duck. May I be safe? May I be well? May I be. You understand what I'm saying? There are those, don't get me wrong, and I've experienced it before, where people are dark night of the soul and they don't want to deal with the dark night of the soul of their experience whatsoever. And maybe it's because they've experienced many, as I have. And so they spiritually bypass whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden things unfold. They're going to unfold exactly as you planned it to be. It's hard to believe because sometimes you're like, how am I to see this happening for me, not to me? How is it possible? May I see how this is happening for me, not to me? May it in divine timing as it's meant to be. And so it's like this movie, I'm watching it and how my life is different. I can still channel and things can come out and I can talk differently. Like, see how it's different as I channel soulfully from a soulful remembrance way in a soulful family, soulfully, compared to someone who is like, what just happened? They're like robot mode. It's like something comes out and they're not in control of what's being said. And then there's those experiences as well where certain things come out with an ebb and flow with ease and grace, and it's beautiful. Like they showed in another clip of the movie I saw where she's talking to this Asian man. She just comes in, she's talking to him, but it's of love and kindness and communicating for everyone in the newsroom, sort of thing. And so, forgive me, I can't remember the name of the movie, but for those, it's in my previous video. And so, it just is as it may. And so, people have different experiences dependent on their experiences. It's like me, have an appreciation of that movie because when I look at animals now, I may look at them differently, not meaning to, but that's the programming. That's what happens. It's like me, having all these beautiful experiences, and they're beautiful. I believe what it does is it makes me stop, take a step back, observe, and process. It's like even look at my dog and like really look at my dog and then seeing my dog and going, okay, is something transmitting through her? Because it's like something was, like I was talking earlier about in another video, how at the end of the movie, it was like my eyes were flittering and I was just like, whoa, this is unusual. And then tonight, when I was looking at her, exactly the same thing happened. So some kind of transformation. It doesn't mean her and I are possessed. And may we not, because I'll tell you, I know what that's like, being possessed. I personally don't wish it upon anyone, but I can't be the one bearing the world on my shoulders and bearing everyone's circumstances and I'm not here to take anyone's experience away from them, just to be. And so I think more and more people are becoming seers. And even though they have a clear knowing of certain things, like, don't get me wrong, I was like full of knowledge and sharing. And I know there's that essence of me that's part of my soul that, has the gift of knowledge. And so, it's just where you get to a point where you're just like, okay, I've heard others say how they are catalysts for change all the time, and it's very hard on them. and how, you know, they do things to help others evolve and grow, but they kind of get left behind in the process in so many words. But that's not true either, because I believe the magnificence of what is as we co-create and we create as human beings. It doesn't mean you have to join a cult or a clique or anything of a collective. You can have friends. It doesn't mean you have to label them as your tribe, like as if we got to have a tribe to protect what we have. People come and go in our lives. Some can stay a very long time, and you disconnect and then you connect again, and you're thankful for that comfort of that human being. And so, and people evolve and change too. And so just remember that there are those that will invade your sovereign space. And I believe that that's evil, but I'm allowed to say that. From the experiences that I've experienced, evil would be somebody like that's a Mara, somebody that's demonic, somebody that believes in the ways that Hitler once believed in. We still have to see the good in everyone. And not that we have to, may we see the good in everyone. May I see the Father and the Son and the bond of them being together, even though the Son was mischievous and the Father, you know, was in a state of something where I would be highly super sensitive to. I'd be like, whoa, slow down, you know, and choosing something very different to do. And so, you know, there was this seminal thought form, and it wasn't mine, but it came through and it said, what if you meet somebody and that's their grandchild? How would you deal with it? And you know what? I wasn't going to give the abundance of time, my time in even answering that, because I am the creator of my own creation. These are what we call co-creators trying to come in because of maybe they're in stillness in their bed and they're sharp of the mind and they just want to, you know, they're being tested by the Almighty and not setting healthy boundaries for themselves and saying, no, thank you. I'm not going to invade someone's Ashok records. I'm not going to invade someone's being. I'm not going to invade, because there is a difference between the guides. And I know this to be true because my guides don't have that kind of relationship with me. It's not human comprehension. My guides aren't like as if a human is right next to me asking me that question. My guides don't operate that way at all. So if you feel like your guide or your higher self is like another human speaking to you in clear communication, you're telepathic, you have telekinesis, you're on a how do they call it? A bandwidth. And so see how that was not communicated in English language to me? That was an energy next to me, like Lord Sanada, that gave me the clear knowing. And so it's not like other human beings. So if you're communicating telepathically or telekinesis, just know there can be trickery in that, and to be very, very cautious. Use discernment. Now, some people can get into the thick of it, and then all of a sudden they're like falling in love with their teacher or falling in love with whatever. Just like you can with boots on the ground, you have a psychiatrist that you feel like, oh, somebody gets it. Well, maybe it's just because they're on a different emotional regulation kind of, they've all done their work and they're at a certain level. Don't get me wrong, there's some psychiatrists out there that need to be fired. They don't understand crisis intervention. They like to be controlling. They themselves probably have unresolved things from their own childhood and get into these rules for different reasons. And our medical system hopefully is on the mend, because there's far too many of those that are, back to this campaign and or this individual, and and sharing with this person who came to my door. And I said, you know, there's so many that don't understand crisis intervention. And I know that from being on mobile crisis. There's so many that act and they don't ask the appropriate questions. Like, are you safe? Do you feel like you're going to harm yourself? Do you have access to any firearms at home? Like, there's just different appropriate questions that you can ask. And don't get me wrong, when people are in shock or certain things are happening and you see someone and now this is your perception, this is your programming, this is what you see. And people are forced on medication against their will. That's just like when you think back in the day and they put people in straitjackets and then they force them medication. To this day, they still force people medications against their will. And if somebody is holistic and they know SSRIs can make them suicidal and depressed, maybe even manic, or whatever the case may be, it can be different for every person. And that has to do with science, that has to do with the brain. I was on antidepressants in the past and I get shooting shocks in my head. So I knew that being off medication, getting shocks in a different way was something totally different. And so it's a real shame that people's freedoms are taken away, that they're put in what people call asylums, but they're put in behind closed doors and they're not allowed out within a certain time period. And if you don't smoke, then you're even in there longer and you don't get fresh air. And you're put in front of a TV and you're given meals, and there's really not the greatest programs out there. It's a little different for people like in the country, outside the city, because there's programs in the province I live in that are very good. But people aren't there for a long stay either. They're not there for 3 weeks or more. I've witnessed people that have been admitted themselves, and then all of a sudden they're not allowed to go home because they live on their own, or families aren't very supportive and loving and understanding, and they're there, and then a shift and change happens, and then the person can go home because the family member's now willing to support them. If you're single and you have kids and dependent on them and their generation, amongst other things, are they able to really be supportive? And so these doctors, really not observing and seeing and unconsciously doing things that are unethical, that are, don't get me wrong, all of us, in one way or another, in family dynamics, in our family line, there has been trauma in one way or another. And for when it comes to certain situations, unlawfully, it's like the Form 4 needs to change in the process. It's hearing that, it's like knowing that people are warned beforehand, so they'll hide. They won't unlock their doors. They'll go to a whole different province to run away because they're psychic and they have abilities. And then there are people that want to control them and put them behind closed doors and put them on medication and fear them so badly that it takes them a while to get off of it. And it is unlawful. If somebody refuses medication, they're not discombatant. I know there's this lady where she had a neighbor complain about her and made up obviously lies, a bunch of lies about her. And the police picked her up and brought her. And then all of a sudden, she was in a good state. And then they put her in a major crisis by putting her on medication that she was not a willing participant. She was willing to be there but not to be on medication. And it literally made her irate, and it changed her demeanor completely. And so it's kind of like, I can't remember what you call it, but back in the day, it was shock treatment to the brain. And it would really mess with people's psychic, not psychic, sorry. It really mess with people's psyche. And it would cause people to fear, and they'd be on medication for the rest of their lives. And the side effects of the medication, and I know someone where it made them so obese, they looked pregnant all the time. They had sores on their face and their hands, like the side effects of it alone with the shock treatment. It's almost like if you were to look at somebody with crystal meth, okay? I know this happened. I know this has happened to a loved one that I have seen as a relative, where, in a relationship, the spouse has an affair. She knows it. She faces it. She's very upset. Obviously is going to be upset about the affair. He looks like they're Catholic. He looks like, or he makes it seem like she's crazy, has her admitted to a psychiatric ward, and like she's the crazy one. And then against her will, everyone's programmed that this is okay back in the day to give shock treatment too, because you have to be that good Catholic wife, no matter what your spouse has done. And shocks to the head, and then they're not them or themselves. And then they get in another environment where those that surround them drink, not all, and there's just different things that unfold. And she's on a lot of medication. She's not herself. There's times where she accidentally urinates in the chair. Sores all over her face and like picking her hands. Her children are taken away. That is a person that had everything taken from them. And then they have to live in the system. And so they're lived in the system. And don't get me wrong, they have loved ones around them that are like giving them chores or different things to do so they can value and have self-worth for themselves. I mean, we're talking about an Audrey Hepburn kind of looking human being to someone who looked like they were on crystal meth. You know how when people get sores and they lose their teeth and different things? That's the pharmaceutical companies back then and what they were creating. And I see it as, I was evil. I don't know how her ex-husband ever lived with himself. He just, I guess, moved on and with someone else. And he himself was abusive. I've spoke about it before. He made his kid eat cigarettes when he caught him. And I remember seeing it, like not seeing it, but hearing it, and the pain and suffering that my cousin went through. Like, we're talking barbaric behavior. And yet we as human beings do so much healing that we forgive. So I've forgiven my dad and my mom, and I'm thankful and grateful, not to compare my cousins in their lives and how their mother was ripped from them and how, this stuff happened. So beyond unethical. And then I kind of wonder, well, where the hell was my Uncle Jack when all this was happening? He was a renowned judge in media. Was he trickstered and fooled because he was a psychic and he was a professional, that he didn't get entrapped in that stuff? And my aunt happened to be, this is my great uncle, that is. And it's like, it's bullshit, game playing and things that people do because their own demise, and they don't face their truth. If they are breaking the laws of commandments, and we're talking about the clear knowing of it, even if they're not and they get forgiven anyway, Moses knows that there are those that do not know what it is they're doing. Jesus knows this. People say Jesus is their savior. It is true, but Jesus doesn't do it alone. I believe that. I believe Jesus doesn't do it alone. He does it with a collective. So when people single out, just know Jesus, Jesus is the only one, there could be possibly a lot of work still to do. Not to say, please use discernment. However your experience is for you is you. So I'm going to just step back from that, because that's like, pulling something of a grenade and holding that grenade and all those Christians out there. It's your truth, your values, your morals, your ethics, however it may be. Us bearing judgment upon one another. I've met many Christians. I've met people of Jehovah's Faith. I've met Catholics. I've met people of real faith, Buddhism, real faith of all that I mentioned, of different faiths, Jewish, you name it. And to remember, as long as we're kindred spirits, loving, kind, compassionate, and work really hard in catching ourselves from bearing judgment, like even just catching ourselves and go, who am I to bear judgment? There's a whole council that takes care of that in a whole different way. And so, with the wisdom of what is, and recognizing that as we move forward, we're not to invoke our morals, values, and ethics onto anyone else. We're all soul searching in a way. And it's kind of funny to say that word, soul searching. Some of us feel soulfully connected. There could be those that are soul searching. I know my purpose. I know what it is I am meant to be. And it's very simple. No matter the glam and the glitter and everything else that's going around me, no matter what it is, love, kindness, that's what it is. That's like Angel Ariel and purpose. That is for me. But that's my reality. That's my creation. That's my purpose. And we can expand from that, right? Of being of service. But it doesn't mean you're to have people walking all over you, treating you like shit. Don't get me wrong. Some people you'll have conversations with from all different levels. And though, as soon as people are starting to bash other people, you're kind of like going, it's one thing to share yourself and experience and going, that didn't feel right for me. But sometimes you keep that within your own heart, because then you're able to process it, because you and you learn that it's okay to share with others. But us as human beings are conditioned where we psychoanalyze, we judge, we do things because we're programmed to do so. And so when it really comes down to the bigger picture of things, you'll find there'll be certain things you can share, certain things with people, and certain things you can't. And that's okay. And surround yourself just with beautiful, beautiful people that are willing to be beautiful, that are willing to be of light, that are willing to be kindness, that are willing to be genuine, that are willing to be non-judgmental and picking you apart. I've been around people that are not light, that have been dark, that portray an image of light, that attack your character. As soon as somebody is attacking your character, you back off, and you'll know, because you'll get those signs and signals of what it is. I'm not going to go through signs and symptoms of what can be with certain people and labeling them. But you just know when you're around people that are lying all the time, and they're consciously aware of it, and then they use excuses for it. there are some times where trickery can be played as well, and you're kind of like, did I really hear that correctly? Let me reconfirm. If you feel it's value to do so, or you just sit with it and you go, okay, I think I heard somebody say this and say that, but then they're like opposites. Like you can't say 1 minute, like there's a correlation, maybe there's a synchronicity in the way we jump to conclusions. That's our consciousness, that's our responsibility. And unless you ask to have clarity, you just can't jump to the conclusion of what you think it was or what it is they may have shared with you. So when we listen and we start to really listen, it gives us doors of opportunity to ask, oh, pardon me, did I misunderstand you? Because earlier you indicated this, but now you're indicating this. So is this a shift and a change with their guides and their spirit and their channeling and they're saying one thing and then they're saying something else? Or is it like me, I'm guilty of this, where I can talk in bits and pieces, like have something and then all of a sudden I have a thought and it comes out loud and, like, oh, was I 7 or 11 when that happened? And it could be something that someone's talking about some subject, or you're watching something and the subject, and then somebody else overhears you. And then it's kind of like they come to their own conclusion of what that may be, and not necessarily exactly what you may have interpreted. It's like people putting the puzzle together and the puzzle pieces aren't quite fitting. That's what happens when you're invading people's sovereign spaces and you're finding out information about them and the puzzle pieces aren't quite meshing together. Well, maybe they're not meant to. Maybe they're not meant to. Maybe that puzzle piece didn't correlate and connect with that piece. Maybe it belongs up there in the corner or down there in the corner in a whole different part of the puzzle. So I'm going to leave you with that. I do have things to do, and I'm hopeful to go out for a walk real soon. May you be well, may you be happy, may you cherish every moment of your experiences. And even for me, the ebb and flow of all this coming through, it wasn't a clear knowing of me sharing this with you. And so I thank my guides, I thank my angels, I thank of course, my guardian guide. I thank the ascending masters, the divine beings, the galactic beings. I thank all that is to be with what is in the now and living my life experience and realizing to continue to be kind to myself, continue not to be hard on myself, continue to, the more I continue not being judgmental towards myself, the way I am to others is a beautiful gift, because I am able to not be judgmental of others. And so may I do the same thing for myself as well. Because there's times where I've been at places and this menial thought comes in and I know it's not mine. I know myself well enough as a sovereign being connected with my soulful essence of who I am, that I know that is not my thought. I would not think that way. And you don't have to engage even in the battle. You can even just go, oh, this is like a monkey mind thing going on, but it's beyond the monkey mind. It's not mine. It's not my thought. The waterfall that comes down and you realize that there are those that are invading people's sovereign space and beings and their ass check records and doing things unethically, but at the same time, you're always protected because the divine grace of what is, when you say, I call on the great white Brotherhood Council of Light. Absolutely. I have no fear in that. And why would one have fear in that? And to be of love, to be of kindness, and also to call in other councils like the Golden Council of Merit and, of Metta, to call in those that aren't living human beings' lives anymore, that are guiding in a different way from, some people say a different dimension, a different world. Some people say, on the other side. And I remember watching something a long, long time ago about a military lady, and she was talking about two aquariums and how the two aquariums like were here and the other aquarium is just a little higher, and how when you cross over, they no longer have the vessel, the body. And so they have the consciousness, they have the personality, and there they are, learning alongside us in a different way. And they have teachers, and they're teaching each other, and it's a different experience altogether. And I call it, like, for me, it's the golden temples in heavens above. Some people call it heaven, however you may want to call it. Some people say, oh, there's all different worlds. Like if you're Catholic, there's a Catholic world. If you're Jehovah, there's a Jehovah world. If you're whatever faith or belief, maybe you're atheist, and that's a whole different planetary world for you. Your creation, yours. I still have to go back to the basics of way back in history, as a friend shared with me, that as you die, it's like whoever your guide, your guardian, your guide is there with you to make choices. And so you have that choice. And so for some beings, human beings, believe that they're supposed to be on the earth plane, maybe doing some magnificent work, helping other human beings on this planet, and then crossing over. Some may be lost and scared and curious and up to mischief and affecting people not in a good way, because they themselves experienced it and went, oh, wow, okay, that's what I was experiencing, and not realizing they're shortchanging their experience by not crossing over and going, whether it's rebirth, reincarnation, however it may be, and moving along into, some would call, the light, and being the light they are, because they no longer have the vessel. And so we create our own reality from our experiences. And I'll tell you, I've had, when I shift and change and see how things could have been very differently in 2018, just by a choice. We're always impacted by the choices we make every moment of every day. It's like me doing this video. It's a choice. Felt guided to it, so I'm doing it. But I also know, okay, time to move on. Time is precious, and it's one of the things. So is peace, and we embrace it ever so gracefully with gratitude, because we know there is so much more than what meets the eye with all these beings, the human beings, with different creations, different knowledge base. So you get a lot of people that want people to be on the same bandwagon, sort of thing. And then you go, okay, there's dark and then there's light. And I just still keep going back to evolution and evolving, and we're all tested, and we all have a choice. What can you consciously live with? What can you consciously live with? If you're fooling yourself to think that being evil intentionally, knowing you're evil intentionally, then who am I to say what is right, what is wrong, from light to dark? I just know my choice. I choose to be good. I choose to be light. And even though I can see sometimes a little dark energy goes by, it's like, into the light, move on. Like, don't cheat yourself. Even when you're in the womb, you were of light. You were light. If you have to go right to that and see the light you were before you became conditioned, right? Sensitized to society and all that's going on. People, love their fame, they love their fortune, but what is fame? What is fortune to you? Peace, tranquility, authenticity, truth, honesty, equanimity. What does that all relate to you? Love, kindness, being the best human being you can be. That can be fame within yourself, because really you have nothing to prove to anyone else. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, because some people will be guarded and they will be like, I have nothing to prove to anyone. No, you don't. Just soulfully within you, consciously, and living a life experience and being the best human being you can be, in a way of love, in a way of compassion, in a way of evolving and realizing you experience pain and suffering that you would never want to invoke on anyone else. Or it could be someone that says, I've experienced this pain and suffering. Suck it up, buttercup. You're going to have to, experience what I have to experience to be where I am mentality. And so everyone's different in how they've been programmed, conditioned. Okay, I won't use the word programmed as much. How they've been conditioned to the thought form. So there's a lot of teachers out there helping us clear our minds. So there are some good psychiatrists and psychologists. Some of them actually get out of the field and do spiritual work. Don't be fooled by the fame and fortune and how someone looks. Some of them can look disheveled and discombobulated because they're so damn good of a human being, that are honest and ethical and everything else, and that are full of knowledge and that are full of experience, that they just want to share it with the world, and they don't really want or expect anything in return in the process. Yeah, and seemingly somebody is getting a picture or trying to send one to me, and I'm exactly, a doctor that I think of that was in BC that was there with the homeless and helping people and doing different things, which is so magnificent, creating change in human being lives so that they can live, even with their own history of their demise. How magnificent and beautiful is that? It's like you might as well say there was a whole bunch of St. Paul's on the planet. Not just one, but many. Imagine that. Imagine that. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Can you imagine millions of St. Paul's on the planet? When does the wars, the battles, when does it end? Nirvana, like enlightenment? I'll leave you with that.